What's up, mushroom heads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah, editor of Cannabis Culture magazine. This is Marius.
Hi everybody, how is it going?
Assistant editor of CC. It's Friday, the 28th of September, and if you didn't know, September is National Mushroom Month. I guess in the United States. I'm not sure if it's the same here in Canada, but we're making it National Mushroom Month here in Canada, if it's not. And today on the show, we're doing a big mushroom show for you guys today. So we're going to take a look inside David Malmo-Levine's latest project inside his herb museum, the mushroom exhibit. It's just freshly opened, the fresh mushroom exhibit. So we're going to go through there with DML. He'll be on the show taking us through. Also on the show, Luis Suarez. He's going to talk about Cannabis Expo Madrid, or Expo Cannabis Madrid. Or is it Expo Cannabis? Wait, which way is it? Expo Cannabis Madrid. Which is a big expo happening there in Spain, which is basically the hotbed of pot stuff going on now because the laws there have come so far. We'll bring him on. He's going on a trip there, so he'll be covering that. Also on the show, we'll have Chris Bennett, who is a cannabis historian, also a historian on entheogenic drug use. He knows a lot about mushrooms, and he's going to be talking about the history of spiritual and religious use of mushrooms. It pops up all over the place, mushrooms. It's not just hippies
From
using it in the
ancient times,
60s.
definitely.
And actually, so you know, me and Marius may or may not have consumed some mushrooms earlier today, about half an hour ago. Our lawyers have told us to say may or may not, but you know what we mean. We have.
Well, that's good, because I don't know what we mean.
Yes.
But I'm sure you guys do know.
I have nothing's kicking in for me yet. I'm sure as time goes on, though, it will. Usually takes me about an hour for mushrooms to kick in, something like that. How about you?
Feeling a little bit lightheaded, but
Lightheaded?
otherwise pretty lucid still.
We took about 2+ grams each, something like that.
Something
a
like
little over
that,
2
yeah.
grams.
A little over 2 grams, that'll do it.
And we do have some
Well-aged.
Mayan mushroom statues here. These are from Chris Bennett's Urban Shaman. Wow. Looks like the cops are here already. They heard about the mushrooms. Yeah, so these are Mayan statues, and Chris will tell us all about these. These are actually from the Urban Shaman. They're replicas of real old statues. So they're very cool. Hi to the chatters out there. All right, and so Malmo-Levine, I guess there's a fire happening right next door. We're going to get Malmo-Levine here. David! And we're going to take you through the new exhibit, so we might as well get started doing this. Is that all we wanted to say up front, Marius? I'm forgetting already.
I think so, yes.
And there's Malmo-Levine now.
How doth it go?
It doth
It
go
does
well.
Are you
And
showing everybody your little mushroom?
no, that's what I brought you on for.
Oh, okay. I've got actually some big mushrooms, bigger than you've ever seen before. You want to come in and see them?
I do, we do.
All right,
So let's
go.
do this. All right, Marius, maybe you can do the camera work? So Mario, actually, before we go, this is the Mario Brothers mushroom, but it's actually an Amanita muscaria mushroom, isn't it? It looks just like
That looks like the only big red mushroom with white dots is the Amanita muscaria.
That's right. Okay, here, we'll grab this guy.
Not sure how you're doing for power.
Powers were plugged in, so we got the
So,
extension cord.
okay, cool.
So you can drag this along with you if you don't step on it. All right. So
Are you
This is
receiving us?
This is the back entrance.
So
You
yeah,
normally
this is
don't
the
go in
Amanita
here. So.
muscaria, or fly ferret mushroom.
Okay, one sec.
Yeah.
On the David
you help with
Aurora
the cord,
poster.
One
As
sec
you
here.
can see, long use as an inebriant in Siberia and other northern regions, but may have
closer.
unpleasant side effects. Toxicity varies greatly from mushroom to mushroom. Common symptoms include nausea, vomiting, drowsiness, cold sweats, lack of muscular coordination, and occasionally seizures.
Oh.
Yes, but according, it says normally not fatal except in large doses, but apparently there's never been a recorded fatality of Amanita muscaria.
And so this one here, Marius, show them what I got in my hand here.
That's our doorstop at the Herb Museum.
That's the same shroom, so it's red with white dots on it. Now,
The Smurf shroom.
and this one has some historical significance because of Santa Claus. Is Santa Claus not related to this in some way or
I
something?
think maybe the guys at Coca-Cola who decided that Santa Claus should be red and white were taking
Well,
a lot
actually,
of
no. We heard a theory
Yeah.
at the women's convention that it was because reindeers would drink piss
Oh.
from reindeers would eat the mushrooms, and then the people who lived around the reindeers would drink the piss and go flying.
Well, that's both could be true. There could be like overlap in those two theories.
Right.
Because were the guys at Coca-Cola in like 1925 or whenever they decided Santa Claus was dressed
Working
in
with
red,
Norman Rockwell or whoever.
they were working with the older versions of Santa Claus, and some of them were based on the reindeer Amanita connection.
Right. So, David, this is the Herb Museum we're standing in now.
Yes, we are in the
307.
hemp and shroom room. We have 5 rooms at the Herb Museum, and as you can see, we're not quite finished. There's still some spaces left to shove more mushroom images and mushroom facts, but we've got a good start. We've now worked on the upper levels, getting these big mushroom posters. Got Stonehenge mushrooms, mushrooms from ancient Peru and El Salvador, this ancient mushroom area here. This is the search for the psychoactive mushrooms that went on in the 50s with Gordon Wasson. Funded by the CIA, and they even sent this guy, James Moore, to watch over him and make sure he didn't come up with the mind-controlled truth serum mushroom.
And this was the CIA?
CIA, it was called Subproject 62, and that's how magic mushrooms were rediscovered in the modern era. The CIA was looking for mind-control drugs.
Wow, and they sent this guy down to the desert in Mexico or something?
That's right, they sent Wasson and his team, which included James Moore, down to Mexico and to meet Maria Sabina.
All right, show these off.
And Roger Heim did the watercolors from the mushrooms they discovered. And this was in a big Life magazine in 1956, Life magazine article that Timothy Leary read, and it changed his life. He went down, tasted the mushrooms, and decided, no, I learned more from one afternoon of tripping balls than all my years in university.
Right. Crazy. So
over here,
yeah, continue us
if
on
we,
here.
if you can see, just have a little look down here. We got these mushrooms from Chinatown, and these are all edible and medicinal mushrooms, including these cordyceps, some of which grow out of insects, which are good for the immune system and cancer.
And they grow, these infect the brains of animals.
That's right.
And then grow from within them. Are those bugs right there?
Yeah, they're like, I don't know how to pronounce that properly, but cicada or cicada, and that's from a caterpillar. And these are actually worth tons of money, like they're worth their weight in gold or more, because athletes also use them to enhance their performance.
Oh, really?
And they're also used in the bedroom.
Really?
Yes.
Aphrodisiac.
Well, just performance-enhancing mushroom. And then these oyster mushrooms over here, get this, they can eat up an oil spill. And then you can eat the oyster mushrooms afterwards. They're non-toxic as long as there wasn't any metal contaminants.
That's crazy. So they can be used to clean up disaster areas, basically.
That's right. And actually, it's funny you should mention that, because over here, we've got these lists of mushrooms that can clean the soil of heavy metals and radioactive elements. So if you're worried about Fukushima destroying the world, fear not, the mighty mushroom will help save the world. The other thing that was used to decontaminate the soil in Chernobyl was hemp. So who knew hemp and shrooms, not only do they get you high, they can help save the world of our fuck-ups.
And eat up the crazy nuclear spill. Like, look at this.
This is a satellite picture. This is the island of Japan, and this is the Pacific Ocean. I think this is Hawaii right here. And you can see this is what we have to deal with now. It's in our atmosphere. It's not going away. We will now have to change our eating habits and the way we grow things, and we're going to have a lot of cleanup to do. So thank goodness. And hemp also grows in sand, which is very interesting too. If you're worried about oil wars going on forever, hemp ethanol is 6 times cheaper at the pump than gasoline. It costs $500 to change your car over to an ethanol-powered car from a gasoline-powered car. An ethanol spill will evaporate, unlike the BP oil spill, which will be washing on the shores for generations. And it'll grow in every country in the world, including in sand, so every country can be energy independent. And what's the downside? A few billionaires stop making billions of dollars on selling us this fossil fuels.
Oh, we can't have it then.
I can.
They can't have it.
They can't have it. They
Let's
run the world.
have it.
But we have the truth on our side, and they said somewhere in some book, some silly book, that the truth will set you free. And we have a shit ton of truth spread out all over the walls up here at the Herb Museum. So come on down to 303 West Hastings. And I'm going to let my partner in this endeavor, Rob, tell you what he knows about mushrooms, because he will blow your mind. He knows so much about mushrooms. Tell him about the plastic-eating mushrooms.
Yeah, so actually this summer, a group from Yale discovered that a mushroom that we knew about, not very much about, they discovered that it actually eats polyurethane, so it will actually eat plastic. And in addition, it's voracious. It loves it, and it will eat it in an anaerobic environment, so no oxygen. So literally at the bottom of the landfill, it will turn plastic into nutrition for the mushroom, and voila. And this is important because to date, nothing biodegrades plastic. In fact, a lot of scholars are,
David.
you know, see you, Dave.
See you guys.
Thanks, David.
It's like 1,000 years from now, if humans are still around, and we start digging through the earth and find the remnants of our culture and society, there will be a layer of plastic.
Right.
But if we employ mushrooms and hemp properly, we could actually help solve a lot of those problems. And actually, a little thing I wanted to point out about the whole Santa Claus thing in the Amanita muscaria.
Yeah.
There's this book called Shroom by Andy Lecter, or Lecture, I should say. And he actually has a little thing about Santa Claus and the reindeers in Amanita muscaria. And it ends up that it's actually, it's unlikely that that's actually true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So
Aw.
it's
That's
been
a shame.
yeah.
I still believe it's true.
In a way,
You mean Santa Claus isn't true?
yeah. But even
They've been lying about everything about Santa Claus to us.
and in a way, it doesn't really matter because the fact that Amanita muscaria has been used for thousands of years by tribal groups in Siberia for shamanistic purposes is established by historical fact. So you know, the Santa Claus thing really doesn't.
And so how did you find out that it wasn't true?
Well, if you would like me. So recently, however, the historian Ronald Hutton has poured cold water on the idea, pointing out its inadequacies. For one thing, Siberian shamans did not travel by sleigh, and their various cosmologies never included reindeer spirits. For another, they never wore red and white clothes, nor did they physically climb out of smoke holes of their yurts while in trance, for their spirit journeys to upper worlds took place entirely in an otherworldly dimension. Hutton reiterated the fact that flying use was intermittent amongst shamans, and that Americans only began to be aware of Siberian shamanism towards the end of the 19th century, long after Moore's poem was composed the night before Christmas. Charming and appealing as the Fly Garrick Santa story is, it is unlikely to be true, and we can say with great certainty that, in writing his poem, Moore was drawing not upon any shamanistic folk memory, but upon his particular talent for creative writing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Debunked.
So, I'd like to bring up both sides of the story.
Glad to hear the truth, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's good to, yeah, exactly.
Whatever the truth
Get
is.
real evidence. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah.
But still, why don't we go through some more of the museum? Actually, I'm looking at this poster up here. I looked at the one yesterday. Well, that one too. I wasn't looking at it, but let's look at that one.
Yeah.
That one looks even cooler.
Yes. Very important to point this out to folks because lots of people like to pick wild mushrooms, especially they like to pick some of the, magic mushrooms.
There. Now we're recording.
Now we're recording.
Yeah,
So now how you
feeling
feeling,
good.
Marius?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling
It has
pretty
nothing
good.
to do with your entheogen use. Why we had a problem there.
No, I'm very
Coherent?
lucid on entheogens.
Nice.
I love hallucinogenics. I breakfast on hallucinogenics.
All right, so we were going to talk a little bit about these. We didn't
Yes.
get any of that, I guess. but-
Okay, so these cordyceps are pretty amazing. So other than their medicinal application, if you're, say you're an ant and you're out and about, you get a spore between your thorax and your leg, a vulnerable spot.
I hate when that happens.
You come back to the colony, there's guards at the entrance of the colony, and they can detect that you're bringing a pathogen, and they won't let you in. They'll actually execute you and throw you into a graveyard away so that you won't kill the entire colony.
Whoa! Wow.
And Paul Stamets,
Oh.
one of the world's leading mushroom authorities, he discovered that at an early stage of growth for this fungi, they actually send out chemical attractants to insects. So what he did is he inoculated grains of rice, and then the insects pick them up, bring them back to the colony, and the guards can't tell. So basically the guards are like, come on in. 2 to 3 weeks later, they're all dead, and they're growing mushrooms out of their heads with the full adult spores, which acts as a deterrent for reinfestation. So he actually created a product, patented it, and then he worked with a pesticide company for 4 or 5 years trying to bring it to market. And in his words, do you think they're interested in marketing a product that will only cost you $1 or $2, that you may only need to use once, and that will kill all social insects?
Of course they're not.
Of course they're not. Because
seems to be
right
a
now,
secondary theme here.
yes,
Yeah.
because of course right now the pesticides they use when they fumigate your home are toxic to pretty much all life forms, which is why you got to get the hell out.
Right. Wow. Well, and
Yeah.
it's keeping the big synthetic companies in business, I guess.
Indeed.
When nature can do things better, you have to make it
Yes.
illegal. Write it off. Yeah, okay, well, let's go look at the rest of the museum here. We were going to take a peek through. For those who haven't seen the episodes about the Herb Museum or been here yourself, if you're in Vancouver, come down to 307 West Hastings.
Indeed,
The Herb Museum, or check out theherbmuseum.ca online. How long is that cord? Do we need it any longer?
We can still go.
So what? This is in the like.
This is what we call the invisible drugs room, and we call them the invisible drugs because everyone's getting high, but the hysteria's around coca, heroin, and cannabis, so people forget that tobacco, coffee, tea, and cacao, chocolate, are really the drugs that dominate humanity. Always have, always will, and are actually responsible for more deaths than all other drugs combined. Tobacco alone is.
Right.
So that's what this room is
Lumping
dedicated
chocolate
to.
in there might not be fair.
Yeah, no. And alcohol, of course, too. So we only have a little bit about alcohol because it's not one particular herb or plant.
Mhm.
But tobacco and alcohol are really the two most dangerous substances that humanity uses.
Cool. So this is the invisible drug room.
Yes, indeed.
And we have stimulants, relaxants, euphorics.
Yeah. So
Quite a lot of work has gone into this museum since
Oh,
you
you
guys
bet.
set up.
Yes,
Hours and
indeed.
hours and hours and hours of just
David is the
posting
man.
stuff on walls.
Yes.
All right, so a little further in, shall we?
So this is the gift shop and art gallery. So it's all by local artists related to psychedelics, cannabis use, and ending the war on drugs. We've got cool stuff like the posters on the wall on the way up and in here. So the black and white ones are $5, the color ones are $10. It's a good way to get some reefer madness, drug-related art on your wall, which is kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys are able to
Yeah.
make it through?
I think so. Our cord's long enough here?
I think so.
And then in here,
That's it? Okay.
in here we have the herbals that are non-psychoactive, so things that have been used for, centuries, sometimes millennia, for medical purposes. And anything with a cork in this museum is 100 years old or more.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. And then behind me here are the synthetic pharmaceutical products. So basically, as pharmacy took over from the traditional healers, which were, the witches, the wise women and men who were experienced with using plants and fungi and other herbs. And there's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. So this whole biomimicry movement where we're looking back to nature because, hey, we're not as smart as we thought we were. Nature's been evolving for 4.6 billion years. Kind of likely that she's come up with some solutions to most of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, that seems to be the case.
She always does.
So hardcore science is reinvestigating a lot of plants and trying to figure out all of the active compounds. And so we're, proving a lot of the ancient uses, disproving some, and finding new things, which is really exciting. So for instance, even the lowly dandelion, in French, the pissenlit, literally piss in your bed, it ends up that root, flower, and leaf have been used for centuries in teas for medical applications.
Dandelion tea.
Yeah, and it ends up that extract of dandelion root actually has some potent anti-cancer agents in it.
Oh.
And a research group from Canada actually got a grant for $157,000 this past summer to look further into that. And of course, because it's non-psychoactive, they will easily be able to continue to get grant money to continue their research.
Right.
Unlike the cannabinoids, which are probably the most potent anti-cancer agents in the plant kingdom that we know of, but because it's cannabis, to date, even though there's over 800 peer-reviewed journal articles demonstrating the anti-cancer properties of cannabis, no human clinical trials to date so far.
Of course.
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Well, just don't let them find out that it's a cancer cure. Then it'll be made illegal. They'll find a new name for it. Devil dandelions.
Yeah. Well, and a particular interest and particularly ironic and crazy is that cannabidiol, one of the compounds in cannabis, which is non-psychoactive in nature and safe for humans, more medically beneficial than THC, is one of the most potent anti-cancer agents, and yet it is still a controlled substance.
Brutal.
Yeah,
Brutal.
it makes no sense at all.
Well, it makes some sense, I guess.
Yeah. And then
So-
over a couple things that are really cool.
I don't know if we can, how
No,
far, that's
can't
about
get
as far
any
as we
farther.
can go here. Our
Oh,
extension
no.
cord only goes so far through the
Sorry.
museum.
Oh,
But
no.
that's okay, though. We really want people to come down here and check
Yeah.
it out. What was it that you were going to show us, though?
Well, over here, we have some ads for 7-Up from back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Now, most people know Coca-Cola used to have coca leaf and cola nut in it. But most people don't realize that almost all soft drinks started life as a patent medicine of some sort. And 7-Up was no exception. In fact, it started life in 1929, and it was called Bib Label Lithiated Lemon Lime Soda. They changed their name in 1936 to 7-Up, and it says the lithiated lemon soda, and their tagline is, takes the ouch out of the grouch, because lithium is a very powerful
We have about 20%.
antipsychotic,
We can always plug back in.
mood stabilizing drug that is used right now for people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia to maintain an even emotional plane. And so they intentionally included lithium as a mood stabilizer. By 1950, though, all companies that were including these kinds of compounds in their products had to remove them by law. Because by then it was, the FDA had to prove medical efficacy and safety, etc. So that's when 7-Up became the sugary soft drink that we all know and love.
Rather than a medical drink.
Yes, yeah.
Lithiated lemon soda.
Yes.
Huh, wow. There's a bunch of crazy stuff in here, lots of bottles.
There certainly are a bunch of crazy things in here.
And it's odd how these corporations, the same ones that are making medicines now, were the same ones developing some of these things back in the day.
And most people unfortunately don't realize the really horrible link between a lot of the pharmaceutical companies' ancient history and then their involvement in things like chemical weapon development, deployment of those chemical weapons in World War I. For instance, Bayer Pharmaceutical was hands-on involved in the Holocaust in World War II. We have a whole section on that over here, and I would love to fill you in on that if you come into the museum. It's a pretty dark kind of history and quite depressing for a lot of people because most people have no idea, and it's mind-blowing. And for instance, just...
It's going to harsh my buzz here.
Tell me to not talk about that?
No, it's all right.
So even a couple of weeks ago, a German pharmaceutical company called Grünenthal, who were the people who came up with thalidomide, which was this drug sold to expectant mothers from 57 through 62. 61 in most countries, 62 in Canada. We were the last country to stop selling it.
Right.
And it was the drug that deformed all the babies. The whole flipper baby incident craziness. Now, sad truth is that they made an apology 2 weeks ago after 50 years. Too little, too late, obviously, and likely as a result of them losing litigation in Australia.
Oh.
Now,
that's why they apologized?
Yeah. The real checkered past is that during the time when they were marketing it and enriching themselves, one of the main directors of the company, his name was Otto Ambros, and he was actually a Nazi war criminal. He served time for being found guilty of war crimes, and he was actually the Nazis' head chemical weapons engineer, and along with another guy, personally responsible for developing things like sarin gas.
Oh, man.
And in addition, not only him, but Grünenthal basically with open arms accepted a whole bunch of Nazi scientists because after the war and serving time, it was hard for some of them to find a job. And so Grünenthal was like, hey, come on in. So it ends up that many of their lead scientists and doctors were also these horrible Nazi war criminals who had served time and had been involved directly in developing nasty chemical weapons and pharmaceutical compounds that were used on research to kill people.
Wow.
Horrible, horrible
So
stuff.
there is a theme emerging here, is that we find these great things in nature, the government makes them illegal, and finds real nasty people to work on them in secret to try and develop them into weapons.
And, it's a complicated story, right? And it's all tied in with, things like the shift from the Nazis being the enemy to, communism being the enemy. So
right. There's always some enemy to develop these weapons for.
Yeah. And so the Americans felt that, hey, if we don't bring the Nazi scientists on board, then our enemy's going to use their expertise. So they literally erased a lot of their Nazi past and gave them new identities and positions of authority and in like research and even in NASA and things like that. And
sounds like they all needed to eat more mushrooms. And I'm actually feeling pretty good right now. I'm definitely getting a little tingle of the mushrooms. The story there was some depth going into the story here. You started moving away from me, and we were all standing in the same spot, so I'm feeling pretty good. These mushrooms are definitely visual for me. Usually I don't have a lot of visual, like any real hallucinations on mushrooms or anything, but just weird things look a little bit different.
Do you know what species
depth. I don't actually know. Could you have identified it if we showed it to you?
I'm not that great at it. I could have given it a stab. If it was bought by someone who's cultivated them, it's likely cubensis.
I think they look like cubensis. They were blue and white, and they're the stalks.
It's most likely psilocybe cubensis.
They were delicious. I ate mine with potato chips.
Delicious? Ew.
Well, they taste like shit. But
They taste awesome. I love them.
Marius likes them.
I like the taste of them.
Wow.
All right, so I think what we should do, well, thank you, Rob, for showing us the museum. It's really awesome. You guys got to check this place out, 307 West Hastings, on the 2nd floor, open to the public. It's $5 to get in or something, is it?
$5 for an hour, $2.50 for a half hour. $5 gets access to the volcano vaporizer as well. $2.50 you can burn one down, use pipe, bong, rolling. And so you can burn while you learn, get medicated while you get educated. And through here, we have the sections on hallucinogens, aphrodisiacs, coca, heroin, morphine, opium, cannabis hash. And obviously in here is the synthetics and herbal remedies in general. And basically try to help people blow their minds by the true science and history behind all these substances.
Cool, man. Excellent. Yeah. So you heard it. Come on down, 307 West Hastings. Yeah. And actually, there are a few shows. Marius, you've done 2 shows. Oh, one didn't get recorded properly.
Yeah, so
there's a makeup show for that one.
There is one
where
show
you take
in the
through the whole museum and show them around and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think right now we're going to play a little video while we get things set back up in the other room. We've got Chris Bennett here, and first we're going to do a little something with Luis. But I just wanted to show you guys some of these. Whoop. Where's my storyboard? I am getting really high here. I feel pretty good. Yeah, I got it. So, okay, this is a video clip that I queued up here. This is from CNN from about 4 years ago, actually. This one, we talked a little bit about some of the research that's gone into the use of psilocybin, and this one is very interesting, so check this out. CNN.
36 people were on what many say was a life-changing trip, but none of them ever left a university laboratory. They volunteered to take the psychedelic ingredient that puts the so-called magic in certain kinds of mushrooms. And now there's a surprising follow-up. CNN's Carol Costello joins us live with the results. Carol, what's happening now?
Well, John, maybe the hippies of the 60s weren't just on something. Maybe they were onto something. Scientists at Johns Hopkins now say magic mushrooms really can expand your mind, producing a kind of religious experience. 14 months ago, they gave dozens of volunteers magic mushrooms, and today, those volunteers are still feeling the effects. The whole Johns Hopkins study seems just so hippy-dippy 60s. It brings to mind Timothy Leary, the man who first widely touted the alleged magic in this tiny mushroom.
5 years ago, by accident in Mexico, I took Mexican mushrooms.
Leary, a Harvard researcher, claimed his mushroom-induced psychotic trip was so spiritual it led him and a generation to
turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Yeah, until the federal government stepped in and made hallucinogenic drugs illegal. Fast forward to 2006 and this research room at Johns Hopkins. 36 volunteers took part in an initial study on whether psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, really does have a lasting spiritual effect on people. Dee Dee Osborne, a business consultant, volunteered to find out.
It's a beautiful feeling. I've not felt anything like that before.
Osborne, lying on this couch, received 1 dose over an 8-hour period. She saw a kaleidoscope of colors. Then
there was a tearing open of my heart, and then the feeling that we were all one.
The effects of that single session are still with her 14 months later, and with other volunteers. The study says at 2 months, the volunteers rated the experience as having spiritual significance and sustained positive changes in behavior.
Most people had experiences that really looked quite indistinguishable from classically occurring mystical type experiences.
The study is nothing like those done in the 60s. They're far more controlled. The goal is to explore whether this drug could prove therapeutic to those terminally ill.
Volunteers who are under psychological distress secondary to a cancer diagnosis. And the thought here is that an experience of this type, primary mystical experience, might well alter the course and the perception that the individual has of their disease process and quality of life.
As for those volunteers who took that long, strange trip on Johns Hopkins' couch, the study says most have no regrets and feel their world is a better place because of it. Now, Please keep in mind magic mushrooms are illegal in the United States, and they can be dangerous if taken without strict supervision. All of the volunteers in the Hopkins study were psychologically prepped for 6 to 9 months. Johns Hopkins scientists say the magic mushrooms can also produce fear and intense anxiety in some people. John?
Fascinating study, Carol. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, where do we sign up? The gun lobby warns Barack Obama.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
That was because we missed 420. Nice bong rip. Thanks, Duchess. Wow. I'm feeling pretty good now.
Those mushrooms are kicking in?
Mushrooms are definitely kicking in. I'm seeing lots of waves. Things aren't quite looking exactly as they were before. So, Luis
has been alterated.
It has been. That's right. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your trip that's coming up here. It's not quite the same trip that we're on, but Spain. Tell people about what you're going to do.
Well, I'll be visiting Madrid for a weekend of cannabis exposition. Over the course of 3 days, on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of October, the city of Madrid will be hosting 50,000 visitors on a former bull ring, which it happens under the name of Expo Cannabis. Same people that puts on Cannabis together, and
here, I wonder if we should bring the
Expo Cannabis in Malaga.
A little closer. Just in case anybody's having trouble hearing this shit. Okay, so go ahead.
So, there's about 65 to 70 expositors, all from all over Europe. 3 days of exposition, and you can find everything from people from legal advice to roundtables about medicinal uses. They'll be growing products. There's a growing culture of auto-cultivation in Spain, and their relaxed laws permit for a
yeah, Spain is getting crazy right now. It's decriminalized there, so it's really allowed to be out more in the open.
Yes.
It's not like or here in Canada, we're all focused on the medical side of things. At their expo, they're talking about recreational use all over the place.
Yeah, indeed. There's both sides. What it's happened more so as culture of auto-cultivation, where they
this way a little bit.
They choose to step outside the regular way of getting their cannabis, which be tapping in the drug market, and then they start growing their own. So this has been shown to the government as a solution of stopping dealing. Places like Chile and Argentina are fighting for things like this nowadays. The movement in Uruguay started because of the same idea of the cultivation. So it's creating a big market, lots of jobs in a bad economy in a place like this. And
that's right.
There seems to be lots of good cannabis growers. Lots of seed banks are moving down from Holland thanks to the relaxed laws.
Right. So, and you went to the expo last year and you had a lot of fun.
It was actually this year. The same people put on an exposition this May.
Right. Okay.
And I was there for 2 weeks. The exposition is only 3 days long, but it was a great time. You can find a very amicable environment, and it's just as tolerated as I would see even slightly more than Canada.
And so we're going to hook up with you while you're there, maybe do some live broadcasting from the expo itself, and at the very least see some of the speakers who are there. Dr. Paul Hornby's there, other people, and we'd like to...
Yeah, for sure. There's Manuel Garcia, I believe is his name, is a doctor, head of the Society of Investigation on Cannabinoids in Spain, which is based in the University of Madrid, and he's been the talk of the town because he's published all of the recent articles about cannabis being helpful with cancer. All the ones coming from the University of Madrid are these guys behind them, so it'd be interesting to hear what he's got to say. All right.
Cool, man. Well, we'll keep in touch with you when you go, for sure. And actually, on the front page of CC right now, there's a small article that you wrote on the front page that people can find out more information about this expo and your trip.
You can also find a video about it and a bunch of photos and all the companies that are going to be there. So just keep tuned. We'll see you again.
Stay tuned to Pot TV, Cannabis Culture. Yeah, the expos, I like the expos a lot, actually. They're a cool meeting place for all the people involved in cannabis, as well as obviously showing off our goods and what we got to the public. I always have a great time when we go to the one here in Canada, and I've been to one in San Francisco before that was a really big one. It was awesome. I don't know if it's as big as the one that you were at, but because that one looks pretty huge. It's in a bullfighting ring, formerly a bullfighting ring or something.
Yeah, what's interesting is most of the bullfighting rings are being closed in Spain, and they've been used like a space for expositions. So it's a huge place. Just tells you how much people it's expected to come, and as well, it's a good way to contrast with what we experience in Canada and how laws seem to be getting tighter in the consumption, personal wise, but when it comes to medicinal, we seem to be better, or sort of better, legally speaking. So yeah, it's just a way to contrast both sides, and I think it'll be interesting to be there.
Cool, man. Well, we look forward to your correspondence from there.
Right on.
Cool one. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll have you on again.
Give me one of those. Hope everything goes well on the mushroom show.
Oh, I'm really high right now, as you can tell from the way I tried to shake your hand there.
There you go. Well, you seem to be keeping it pretty well.
I feel pretty high inside if I'm not showing it on the outside. I don't know if I'm looking at a camera or what exactly I'm looking at right now. But, okay, well, I'm going to play another video here. This is the Young Turks. We always play Young Turks videos. This is one from a couple years ago from their show about mushrooms. I don't always agree with everything they say, as you can tell from some of the stuff in this video, but check out the Young Turks on some of the research that was done a while ago into psilocybin.
Researchers at UCLA have begun clinical trials on terminally ill patients. And what they're doing is they're using hallucinogenic drugs to see whether or not those drugs handle their anxiety. So basically their transition into death becomes a little easier, okay?
Well, it's a logical experiment to do, and I'm surprised they haven't done it so long, and they haven't because it was made illegal, etc.
Right.
And obviously very curious about the results.
Right. So what they used is a drug known as psilocybin, and it has components that are found in shrooms. Okay, so magic mushrooms. And what they did is they tested these drugs on 12 patients who were terminally ill. 10 of them have died since the study. And what they found is their anxiety was lowered by 30%.
Okay, I want to be clear. They didn't die because of the shrooms.
No, they died because of their illness, obviously, yeah.
Right. And it turns out the magic shrooms totally helped them.
Right.
With very little side effects. And that they were almost all of them were very pleased by it. The averages were fantastic. And now people are thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe we should do a couple more experiments with that. And in fact, like they were doing experiments with this stuff medically 35 years ago. And then once it was made illegal, they stopped, which then drives me crazy. You know, this whole making drugs illegal and, you know, making it forbidden and, you know, oh my God, you can't touch it, it's toxic. Come to find out, hey, if you do a little science, maybe it's not as toxic as you think. And it depends on the drug.
Right.
And it depends on the context, too. I'm not telling you to go do shrooms right now. And honestly, I don't even know what shrooms does. I'm not a guy who's taken a lot of drugs. I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you the difference between magic and non-magic shrooms. Okay. They mentioned LSD later in the article, and I got confused. I'm like, wait, is it the same thing, different things? Okay.
I love that you're mentioning this because we got an email from a listener who's like, can you guys do a little research before you cover drug-related stories? It's sad.
Like, what kind of research do you want me to do? You want me to go, like,
try
light
a
up?
little shrooms, a little LSD.
Okay,
No.
we know what's in the story.
Right.
But, by the way, what do you even do with shrooms? Do you smoke them?
You eat them.
You eat them.
You eat them, and what they do is they're a hallucinogenic. So you start, you know, seeing pink elephants and things like that.
That sounds fun.
You go into a different world. Except there are downfalls to shrooms, and not in these medical or clinical trials. There was a story that we never did on the show about a wrestler who took shrooms with his friend, and there was a girl there, and apparently they were all tripping out on the shrooms, and he killed his friend and then cooked some of his organs on the stove.
Okay.
So
All
there
right.
are
Shrooms are now
downfalls to
out. Okay. They're back on the ban list. All right, listen. Obviously, look, I'm very pro legalizing drugs, right? I'm very clear on this record, right? Doesn't mean I'm in favor of doing drugs. That's a whole different thing, right? And here they're doing clinical trials with the right dosage and with doctors that know what they're doing. If you think you take this report and like, oh, shrooms must be good, okay, let's cook up whatever I bought off the streets, that's not a good idea. And that's part of the reason I want to legalize it too, because we can figure out, hey, look, this is safe, this is the right dosage, and this is the dosage at which you kill and cook your friend, right?
Yeah.
So that's how legalizing would help as well.
I got to get the name of that guy because that was a really interesting story.
Yeah. And look, now it turns out that they might be able to use this with patients who are in a lot of pain, who are not just terminal patients, etc. And look, 10 of those people died. And before they died, their pain was significantly eased because of this. That's fantastic. And if the government comes and tells me, no, you can't do something that we know is going to ease your pain and your stress and your depression and all that stuff because we find it immoral, suck it in the biggest way. Oh, okay, I'll pay the fine after I'm dead. Okay? No, you tell me I got terminal cancer and I can't go do shrooms if a doctor thinks it makes sense, or I can't smoke marijuana, piss off. Okay? And if you're any kind of serious libertarian or actually a conservative who believes in the idea of freedom and liberty, you should be totally in that camp. And liberals are in that camp. We should all be in that camp. Except, of course, unfortunately, a lot of this country is misled and hence not in that camp. Now, I don't want to sound too conspiratorial, but the alcohol monopoly must be maintained.
The Young Turks. This bong is right in your face.
Right in my
Chris
face.
Bennett,
Peace.
historian on the subject of drug use in particular. Good to have you on the show.
Good to be here. Your eyes look pretty big.
I am definitely feeling really good now on the psilocybin.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Had
You
about
should get
2
your
grams.
pupils right up to the camera there so people can take a look at those big black beauties.
Marius, how you feeling? You like cupcakes. Marius likes cupcakes, so that's how he's feeling.
There you go.
Yeah, Chris, you might have to lead this interview because I'm totally gone, man.
It's interesting you're tripping on psilocybin mushrooms, and to modern Western culture at least, mushrooms are relatively new, something we've really discovered in like the last 50, 60 years, or maybe rediscovered. There's a lot of people believe that there's ancient use of magic mushrooms in even Christianity and other cults. And Terence McKenna speculated that maybe human consciousness developed from a symbiotic relationship with mushrooms. But for us in the Western world, what we do know is that we became familiar with them when R. Gordon Wasson, a banker and mycologist, amateur mycologist, went to Mexico and met the Mexican shaman Maria Sabina, a Maztec shaman in Mexico, who introduced him to the psilocybin mushrooms. And he
Wasn't he sent by the CIA or something?
Well, there's theories like that. There was definitely later on the CIA took a deep interest in mushrooms as a means of mind control. Whether Wasson himself was a CIA operative is something that Jan Irvin's been speculating on, but I'm not in agreement with myself. He certainly would have helped them later on because he was a devout American. He would have done anything to help the government. But initially, it seems to have been from just an interest in mushrooms, and it ended up in Life magazine, and this spread the idea of it all around, and led to. We're doing a live show.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can sit wherever you want.
Yeah. And so this is where the modern use came from, spread on, and then people like Timothy Leary and other people started experimenting with it for psychological benefits and things like that. And there was even both mind control experiments done by the government and ESP experiments as well. There's a book on LSD and psilocybin ESP experiments.
And you sent me a video earlier today. Yeah.
It's funny with...
I'll link to that in the show notes.
Maria Sabina, she later regretted introducing Wasson to the mushroom. They had this whole, these Mexican rituals based around the mushroom, but she said after she introduced it to Wasson that it was ruined because now it was speaking the language of the foreigner. And it's almost as if the mushroom consciousness expanded in with the more people that were doing it. That there was some sort of expansion of consciousness in there in the mushroom realm, where she was experiencing the mushroom now with an English language, you know. At least that was her take on it. You know, whether there was something there or not is debatable. And I think I told you about this experiment I did 12 years ago in group consciousness and mushroom. Yeah. Well, it was in 1996, and I had a number of participants in it. Some of the people that watching the show probably know, like Dana Larson and Ted Smith and Chadwick Kane from the Victoria Compassion Club. And I invited them all out for this experiment that we call the Wheel of Anthropos. Anthropos is a name of a deity that represents collective humanity, kind of like the collective consciousness. And I told them what we were all going to do beforehand, and they all wrote out a question. And then they formed a circle around me, and I was in the center of the circle. This time I was really into ritual magic, you know, so I did a magical invocation, and we took the mushrooms, and then I took them through a series of exercises to facilitate the period into getting high, and had them all focus on me in the center of the circle. And then at the peak of all this, when we were starting to really start tripping on mushrooms, I did one last invocation, and then I selected a question from the hat. And I touched one person, and that person was to say one word, and then the next person in the circle would follow with a word, and then it went right around the circle. And it was, when it happened, it was as fast as somebody could speak. You know, it almost seemed like one being speaking. It was a pretty trippy little event.
And you were writing it down?
And I was writing it down, and this is the questions and answers that we got. Now, it's important to remember that there were 12 people saying this, so each person said one word, and then that was followed by the next, followed by the next. So no one person said this thing, yet it still retains grammar and a sentence structure. And so the first question that I picked from the magic hat are the forces of light going to triumph over the forces of evil? And the answer that came back is, it is not likely that we should see the way to understand freely and completely. That is, knowledge and power is left to one's discretion. If you seek to what I have given, then we shall know if everything will be forever best, together realized, and that we move towards an ever-thrust of being complete faith, harmony, understanding, respect for us. Now that's kind of true, you know. Like, it's not likely that, you know, it doesn't seem so right now in these dark days of potential global war with Iran and Enbridge oil line and conservative takeover of the Canadian government. It seems like pretty dark days. And knowledge and power is left to one's discretion. I bet there's lots of people out there with a lot of knowledge about what's happening in the world right now that aren't really doing their bit in far as like trying to combat what's happening and make the world a better place. And on the same kind of tone, there's probably a lot of people with power like Stephen Harper, who's utilizing all this power without really knowledge about what it's going to do to the environment, what it means to the future of our race and the earth itself, you know. And then respect for us, yeah, well, that's a good idea. The second question was, where on earth will be a safe place for humans to live into the future? And the answer that came back was, how can we find an appropriate place for living conditions on earth after events breaking apart which can't move towards resolution, spinning comfortably? And what I take from that one is that it doesn't matter where you go. You could go live in the hillsides, you know, and up in the mountains and in the forest. But the problems that we're facing here on Earth right now, global warming, poison of our water, deforestation, loss of our fisheries, all these things doesn't matter where you are on Earth, you're going to be affected by it. And spinning comfortably, most people are just kind of like worried about paying rent and what's going to be on TV tonight and what time do I get off work, you know what I mean? And so they're kind of totally distracted from the bigger reality of what's happening to our planet.
I find it strange. I mean, it has sentence structure. It's really like, you know. And
it's fluid.
When it was going around the circle, how quickly were people saying the word?
It was like as fast as I could write. It was like I was like racing to keep up with it.
It's pretty remarkable.
And I sent out questionnaires after, and I got one word wrong. I think in this sentence here, knowledge, that is, knowledge and power is left to one's discretion. Dana said he said thus where is, so it should read, that is knowledge and power, thus left to one's discretion, which is basically the same thing. So all the rest of it was correct according to the participants. And then my last question, this was around the time that they just found these big worms living on the ocean floor on volcanic vents, and they can breathe hydrogen gas and, you know, live in 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And some scientists have speculated that these things may have come to Earth before any life was on it, on a meteor, punctured Earth like a sperm into a big egg, and then started reproducing, and then creating a chain reaction in the atmosphere and life and the whole life process. And so I said, tell me about the worms at the ocean floor. And at this point they responded, they were born to part with time, past and future. Wow. And at that point somebody started laughing and the whole thing just disappeared. And I was like, what the hell, I told you guys to concentrate, you know. And then we read it and had a nice trip the rest of the night and had a party. But it was a pretty fascinating experiment.
Sorry, say the last one again.
Tell me about the worms on the ocean floor. And it came back. They were born to part with time, past and future. Wow.
Wow is right.
Yeah. Maybe when Earth we blow ourselves up or something, they fly off on another meteor somewhere else. And
it makes sense.
Repeat the process.
Impregnating the egg or the embryo or something.
Just gonna have a sip of your water. Nothing in that. Eh?
No, go ahead. Yeah, it's not mushroom infused or anything. Though I definitely am at this point.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's crazy stuff,
and
man.
Talk about these things. These are ancient. These are replicas of statues that were found in Mexico from like 1,000 years ago or so, I think, maybe even longer than that. And they're mushrooms from when replicas from when they were using sacred mushrooms in the Mayan culture.
Right. Wow, they're very cool. A guy with a mushroom on his head.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Super Mario Brothers.
So yeah, this is like really, it's a shame that such a wonderful substance like mushrooms or like peyote or cannabis are prohibited, because these are things that people have been using for thousands and thousands of years, important parts of our heritage and culture, and that they're prohibited is a law against nature, really.
Yeah. A little lower, Marius. Look at the bottom of it. It's like a solid unit. This thing is extremely heavy.
Would have been made out of stone originally. These are cement reproductions.
Yeah, they're very cool. What were they made of originally?
Stone. Carved out of stone, yeah.
Cool.
But about this size.
Huh. And so, yeah, so not just that culture. There's so many different cultures that have used mushrooms.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of religious cultures throughout the years, and of course all of the religions now scoff at the idea that the Orthodox religions or the organized ones, they don't like drug use at all, but really a lot of their cultures all stem from
drug use. Yeah, well, like the term shaman itself comes from the Siberian Tungus shaman who would ingest the fly agaric mushroom, the Amanita muscaria mushroom, kind of the Santa Claus mushroom. There's this whole connection between Santa Claus and the Amanita.
We had Rob debunking that one. He said, according to a book that he had, that I guess that he found some information or something that they said it's not related to Santa Claus.
Yeah, well, there's debate about it.
There's definitely debate for sure. Yeah, that's the Super Mario Brothers mushroom, and it has the red and white cap as well. So cool. Do we miss anything?
No, that's pretty good. I think you guys probably need to go and enjoy a little off-the-air time.
Probably. How you feeling, Marius? You still like cupcakes? Want to listen to some music? Yeah, well, I definitely like music when I'm on mushrooms. Watching cool visual movies. This one seems to be really visual for me. Everything right now is like really like sort of hazy and colorful. Very colorful. I'm having a great time here. Thanks, Chris, for coming on. Much appreciated. Thanks for the statue use as well. We'll make sure that we have somebody.
Safely bring him down.
That's right. Probably not us right now. And I guess that was it. But I do want to show. There's a couple more little videos I have here. Let's play this one here. This is from ABC, and it's from a few years ago as well. I think 2 years ago. Yeah, it'll explain itself. Watch.
Finding God. What if a pill could help you find God faster? Well, a controversial medical study claims an illegal hallucinogenic drug could do just that. But it's setting off a controversy in the medical community. Joining us to explain a little bit more about this study is Dr. James E. Smith, professor and chairman of the Physiology and Pharmacology Department at Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center. Welcome, doctor.
Good morning.
Well, how is this different than when I was growing up and hearing about Timothy Leary giving LSD and other hallucinogenics?
Well, we were growing up at the same time, and it's very different in that this was a very rigorous scientific study in one of the top-notch human behavioral pharmacology laboratories actually in the nation.
Well, the headline attracted my attention. It says, hallucinogenic in mushrooms creates universal mystical experience. What is a mystical experience?
I think a mystical experience is one in which individuals can have in various settings. It can be highly religious circumstances, but generally it's a circumstance where one feels that one is really communing with something more than themselves.
I could just see the headlines tomorrow from lay people reading this. Is this God in a pill, if you will?
That's really a very interesting question. Even the investigators really talked about it being a significant mystical experience, and these substances, mescaline, which is similar to psilocybin, and even the magic mushrooms, Mexican mushrooms, have been used by Native Americans for some period of time in various religious experiences that were part of their culture.
Now, in reading this article, volunteers, because that's what we should call them, were given this, and about 60% said that this would be one of the top 5 experiences of their lives. That is truly remarkable.
It is very remarkable. Very remarkable.
Is there an area where you can see this being abused, or people reading this article and saying, well, I want to have a top 5 experience and buy some magic mushrooms?
That is really always an issue when you find, or when you're working with substances that have effects upon the central nervous system. And in this case, obviously, there's those individuals that would want to do exploration of oneself rather than scientific experimentation. It's clear that what this is, it's the beginning of a very significant scientific investigation of the actions of psychedelics, something that has never been so rigorously performed.
Do you see this being used in terms of severe depression or in end of life when experiences are low to kind of augment one's consciousness, if you will?
Yes, I think that that's actually one of the first areas that the group from Johns Hopkins wants to actually look at. They want to look at severely depressed individuals, terminal cancer patients, for example, where some type of mystical experience, at least experienced by I believe it was like 70% of the individuals that they tested, in individuals that are terminally ill.
And also we should make it clear that the volunteers did have some effects such as paranoia and anxiety. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yes, actually, during the psilocybin episode, individuals reported kind of a semi-fear, panic, anxiety. So yes, and if we look back in the lessons that you and I are aware of from the 60s, with LSD, for example, there were circumstances where people were using LSD on a fairly frequent basis, and they might have wonderful experiences, and then all of a sudden have a horrible experience, a horrible panic type of circumstance. It's clear that a substance like this can be very dangerous. Anything that distorts the way you're seeing the world can result in panic, and you may engage in activities that may be self-destructive and without even being aware that you're doing it. I was going to say, these compounds, we don't know a great deal about the science behind that, and I really believe that this study is the first step in that direction.
Great. Dr. Smith, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again when the studies continue. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again when the studies continue.
camera didn't come back for some reason. There it is. Did it work? Did we come back?
Are we back?
No, it doesn't look like it worked.
Oh,
it's black. Oh, there it is.
There we are.
Nice.
There
Oh,
it
it did
is.
work.
We did survive.
Excellent.
Oh.
Wow, now I'm really tripping out.
Yeah.
Did it work or didn't it?
As you can see, we're totally crazy here.
I feel great. And I wanted to say, the reason that we chose to consume them and do it on air and stuff isn't, we're not just fucking around and having fun, which we are, but it's also a protest against laws that we find unjust. We think that you can't make nature illegal. It's ridiculous. It's a horrendous concept, so this is our way of protesting the laws that we feel are wrong.
For me, whenever I take mushrooms, it's a deep trip into my my psyche. If I'm not ready for the black stuff that's there, I have a bad trip. So be careful. I mean, I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a really good time. But
right.
It's not just, oh yeah, we're going to take mushrooms. No, we're both pretty, I think, knowledgeable about the
effects of them. I've taken them many times in the past, and it's not to be taken lightly. You know, exactly. There is something, and
they're a sacrament as much as cannabis is. So.
That's right. They are a lot of fun, but also if you haven't taken them before, they might bring you to a place you've never been. Yeah, exactly. And that's sometimes scary. So I've had bad trips on mushrooms before. Definitely not on these ones though. These feel great. I'm having a great time right now. Yeah, I'm floating real high.
Really, really good.
Yeah. So I do have one more little clip, and we're going to take a bong rip. I think this is loaded for you, my friends.
Thank you, my friend.
There you go. Duchess. Thank Duchess as well. Yeah, of course we need to smoke cannabis. We don't want to make the whole show just mushrooms. Got to hit the bong. Yeah, I played. All the videos that I played so far were from like I think 2 years ago or later. I do have one last video to play here. It's just a short one. From 2012. This is the latest studies on mushroom use. And this is a cool clip from RT. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the show. It was fun hanging out. I guess I'll wrap it up here, and we'll see you guys next week, I guess.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Love you guys. Peace.
The 60s generation, rave goers, and college kids alike are going to love this geeky science today. A new report in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences suggests that the key ingredient in magic mushrooms, psilocybin, may be the perfect aid for certain mental disorders. Early research has shown that psilocybin is helpful for terminally ill cancer patients dealing with anxiety and possibly people with severe forms of depression. Essentially, psilocybin targets both the medial prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex regions of the brain. The former determines how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. Psilocybin alters this activity in the brain, thereby opening up a person's personality and thoughts. And in the anterior cingulate cortex region, psilocybin decreases the amount of activity that's occurring, therefore decreasing activities associated with depression. Not only that, this research shows the positive effects from shrooms last for as long as 25 years. The possibility that magic mushrooms can help with neurological problems is really nothing new, however. Timothy Leary, a famous American psychologist, was a strong advocate for the use of psychedelic drugs for the treatment of mental disorders from the 1960s until his death in 1996. Leary, who first took psilocybin in 1960, argued that substances like LSD and psilocybin, when used in a controlled setting, at proper dosages, and under the guidance of an experienced therapist, was beneficial in treating mental disorders from depression to addiction in ways that traditional therapy had failed. Despite Leary's research and these new findings showing magic mushrooms are promising in treating depression and anxiety, don't hold your breath waiting for them to become available from your local pharmacy. That's because there's way too much money to be made promoting other drugs that alter our consciousness, like alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco, and they all have lobbyists. So, let's see. Positive effects last 25 years. The last time I took magic mushrooms was more than 30 years ago. I'm overdue.